The existence of objective morality in the universe demands the existence of an objective moral originator. This is our third and final proof for the existence of God, and while this of the arguments is the most nebulous, the least based upon concrete observation, in my personal opinion, it is the strongest and most compelling, at least when it is truly understood. Welcome to the Gospel Call, brought to you by the Purcellville Church of Christ. At this point, we've already gone through two of our three arguments for the existence of God. If you haven't heard those, we encourage you to go back a couple episodes and catch up on those. Our three arguments for the existence of God are the cosmological argument, also known as the argument from cause and effect, the teleological argument, also known as the argument from design, and the moral argument, also known as the moral argument. The moral argument, if precisely stated, would go something like this. A. If it is the case that morality is objective, then there is an objective moral originator. B. Morality is objective. C. Therefore, there is an objective moral originator. We can extrapolate that an objective moral originator would be God. So what do we mean when we say objective morality or an objective moral originator? Well, breaking these down, we're basically looking at the words objective and moral. Moral is simply an ethic. It is whether something is right or whether it is wrong. Objectivity is talking about whether or not something changes, usually from person to person. There are some things we know are objective, and then there are some things we know are subjective. For example, if I were to say that there are 5,280 feet in a mile, this would be an objective fact. Doesn't matter who you are, this is true for everybody. However, if I were to say something like, my favorite food is lamb, this is not an objective fact. It is something that is subjective. Chances are your favorite food is not lamb, and this isn't true for you, and it's certainly not true for everybody in the world. It's just a matter of personal taste, and so it changes from person to person. So that is what subjectivity is versus objectivity. Doesn't matter who you are, the amount of feet in a mile don't change, but your favorite color, your favorite food, your favorite song, and not just your favorites, but anything that you would hold an opinion on, things that you like, things that you don't like, those are all subjective. Now, when we talk about objective versus subjective morality, there are plenty of people right now who believe that morality is something that is subjective. However, the idea of morality being subjective is self-defeating. Yes, a lot of people believe that morality changes from one person to another person, or at least they believe that on paper until you start asking some questions in a broader context. Let me ask you a question, and answer for yourself. Do you think this can be something that's true for you, but might not necessarily be true for somebody else? Is it wrong to murder somebody? And we mean that in the most strict definition of the word murder possible. I mean, killing an innocent person. Is it okay? Unless you're a psychopath, you answered that question, no. It's not okay to murder anybody. Now, is that something that is subjective or objective? Is that something that is true for you, but might not necessarily be true for somebody else? I hope you still answered no to that. It's wrong for you to kill somebody, and it's wrong for anybody to murder somebody. Well, what if that person says that they feel differently about it? Does it make it okay for them to kill then? Well, of course not. Why is that? How is it that we know that it is objectively wrong for somebody to murder somebody else no matter who they are? That's the objectivity of morality. But if morality is objective, then it needs to come from somewhere. There has to be some source for it. If it's just something we have agreed on collectively, then it doesn't actually mean anything. And those of us who are following their consciences and attempting to be moral, well, we're the losers then, I suppose. And the people who really have everything figured out are the psychopaths, the ones who don't see a need for morality at all, who are incapable of understanding the difference between right and wrong. But we know this to be untrue. We know there are things that are objectively good, and that there are things that are objectively evil. So where did our morality come from? We can start pointing to a lot of different physical sources as potential explanations of our origins of morality. Well, maybe we got our morality from our parents, the way our parents chose to raise us. That's what gave us our sense of right and wrong. Or maybe it's the laws of the nation that make something right or wrong. Maybe it's the culture around us which chooses collectively what is right and wrong. Maybe it's our personal consciences that decide what is right and what is wrong. But each of these have problems in being the origins of morality. Maybe what is right and what is wrong is decided by how our parents decided to raise us. Well, would that mean then that it would be okay if somebody was raised to be a murderer for them to then go and murder somebody? We might have a little more sympathy with somebody like that, but it still wouldn't be okay. It still wouldn't become right. What if the government is the source of morality? Well, what if your government makes it legal to murder? Is it then okay to murder? And that might sound like a far-fetched idea, but history tells us there have been quite a few times where not only has government okayed murdering, they have made murder the law. What about the culture around you? It falls to the same problem. What if the culture tells you that it's okay to murder? Sound far-fetched? Certainly not. There have been whole cultures based around murder and killing. So if morality isn't decided by the way you're raised, it's not decided by the government, it's not decided by popular vote, because even by popular vote, people may still choose to do something evil. Where is it coming from? Our consciences? Well, what if your conscience doesn't tell you that it's wrong to murder somebody? And there are people who have mental illness and do not have a conscience about doing that sort of thing. Is it okay for them to kill? Certainly not. A common Darwinistic explanation for our senses of morality is a concept known as the selfish gene. Someplace within your DNA is a gene that is designed to make you moral by valuing the good of the entire species rather than just the good of the individual, and therefore continuing to propagate the species. but there's a few problems with that as well. First of all, morality is too complex to be understood by that. We understand that animal cruelty is something that is morally wrong, yet it has nothing to do with the propagation of the species. Further, if it is simply the command of a strand of DNA, if it is just a biological, chemical reaction, then it ultimately means nothing. It means that people who do evil things aren't actually being objectively evil. They're just ignoring a chemical reaction. And is it really evil to ignore a chemical reaction? We might say that we were designed for it, but we were designed for a lot of things that we choose to ignore. You know, we were designed to be able to be one of the best long-distance runners in the world compared to the animals, be able to run down antelope on the plains. And me personally, I get winded after a half mile of running. It's not evil. Might be pathetic, but it's not evil. And if morality is just mere biology, then how can we call anything evil at all? This is what is meant when you hear somebody making an argument about the lack of morality in atheism. We are not saying there are no good atheists, but we are saying that there are no good atheists who have followed the logic of their own philosophy. If you are going to follow the logic of atheism, then there is no good and evil. Morality is whatever you choose it to be, and everything is permitted. Now, fortunately, most atheists do live above the implications of their philosophy. They don't follow what they believe to a logical conclusion, thankfully. So, if none of these natural sources are sufficient explanations for where we got morality, then where did we get it from? Is it really just an illusion that we have in our heads? Well, something tells us no, it's not. It's something bigger than all of us. There can only be a supernatural originator of morality who is himself moral. Of course, anything that is going to fit such a complex definition would certainly fit under the definition of God. God is the only possible explanation of where we get good and evil from. Our objective moral standard that will not change for anybody at any time and has real power behind it is God. And because we know there is objective morality, then we know there must be a God whom this morality flows from. Those are our three arguments for the existence of God. The cosmological argument, the existence of anything in the universe, really demands the existence of a non-contingent originator. Our teleological argument, the existence of design in the universe, demands a supernatural designer. And our moral argument, the existence of objective morality, demands the existence of an objectively moral originator. All of these things have been followed to a logical conclusion. Now, these arguments are nothing new. They were first stated precisely by the ancient Greeks, but these arguments still existed even before then, because they are just basic logic. They sound sort of complex when you first get into it, but then it turns out they're pretty dead simple. As a result of them being around so long, though, they all have criticisms involved with it. And so our next couple of episodes are going to be dealing with criticisms about the arguments for the existence of God. You may have heard what I've had to say about these arguments already and thought of some of these criticisms. If that's the case, we highly encourage you to tune in to our next couple of episodes, and maybe we'll discuss something that you have been wondering about these arguments. And of course, you always have the opportunity to email us at thegospelcallpodcast@gmail.com. That's thegospelcallpodcast, all one word, @gmail.com. For the Purcellville Church of Christ, I'm DJ Kessinger. Thank you so much for listening.